What's up, it's ENDYMION, and we're closing in on the next episode of The Acolyte, which, don't worry, I'll be reviewing it as soon as it drops so you don't have to watch it. But before that can happen, we need to sift through some more garbage as well. From the creator of The Acolyte claiming her series is not inherently gay on purpose, the next director of Star Wars Episode 10 confirming the series will not abandon its feministic tenets, and Kathleen Kennedy doubling down on all of this, and YouTuber Star Wars Theory getting issued death threats as well. Firstly, let's look at The Hollywood Reporter. They recently spoke to Leslye Headland about her show in this article titled, "The Acolyte's creator doesn't believe her new Star Wars series is queer with a capital Q." Headland says that she believes The Acolyte's backlash is being blown out of proportion and that people are labeling the show things that it is not inherently. Even though, in the same article, The Hollywood Reporter and Headland confirmed that basically everyone in the show outside of the Squid Game guy either identify as gay, non-binary, or some other label, which at this point there's so many, I can't even name them all. For example, Yord, one of the Jedi, is a gay man in real life. Vernestra is played by Headland's wife, which, I mean, that one is self-explanatory. Even Amanda Stenberg, who leads the series, and I'm sure you saw her cringe music video recently, she identifies as non-binary and gay as well. Maybe I'm misgendering her right now by calling her a she? Is she a they? I have no idea anymore, to be honest. The point being is that the entire show is absolutely 100% leading an agenda. There's no way Leslye Headland, who's gay herself, didn't randomly, out of nowhere, happen to hire exclusively people who fit into her bubble 100%. Headland was asked by The Hollywood Reporter about her viral moment where her and Amanda Stenberg were being interviewed, and started laughing about how the Acolyte series was super gay. They went on to say that R2-D2 is even in a lesbian relationship with C-3PO. In case you don't know what I'm talking about for context, I should probably show you what I'm talking about, so here, please watch.
I would say arguably the gayest Star Wars, I think by a considerable margin. And are you excited about that? Are you
Not
bracing
the gayest
yourself?
Star Wars. Not the.
It's pretty gay, let's be honest. Leslye, how do you feel?
Am I gay? Yes.
Well, no, I know
Yeah.
you are gay, but I'm asking, are you excited about putting this, this is going to be a talking point?
Is it going to be a talking point?
I'm sure so.
Because nerds are gay.
Well,
Yeah.
some nerds are very not gay and are very threatened by gay
Well, that's
stuff.
true. But
Yeah.
in my world, nerds are gay.
Okay. Was this the fun element of it?
No, I don't think so. And yet people have told me that it's the gayest Star Wars, and I'm frankly
You're offended?
into it. No.
I think that Star Wars is so gay already.
Okay.
I mean, have you seen the fits? We'd be like, look how gay this is, and then send each other a reference photo.
And are you telling me, with a straight face, that C-3PO is straight?
They're a couple. That's what I think. But this is more outward.
I think it's canon that R2-D2 is a lesbian.
Oh,
Ooh.
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Ask Filoni. Okay.
Ask for
Can you
one.
imagine?
This clip, like I said, went viral for pretty much all the wrong reasons, and it's a big talking point in this article that I'm reading now. Leslye had more to say about that interview as well as the absolute state of Star Wars fandom too. She said, and I quote, "I was surprised by the question. Amanda and I just burst out laughing because that's our knee-jerk reaction to being asked that. But to be honest, I don't know what the term gay means in that sense. I don't believe that I've created queer with a capital Q content. I'm proud of being a gay woman who's accomplished this feat, and certainly if my content is called queer, I don't want to disown whatever queerness is in the show. I want to be proud to create something that inspires queer people. Honestly, I feel sad that people would think that if something were gay, that would be bad. It makes me feel sad that a bunch of people on the internet would somehow dismantle what I consider to be the most important piece of art that I've ever made." End quote. While obviously I have empathy to a degree and understand that Leslye is not happy about all the backlash, the reality is that what she has done here has not gone over well with the fandom, which is putting it lightly. Obviously, there's the gay elements that are strewn across all of it, but it's also because the show breaks the fundamental lore bits as well. Stuff like characters being alive when they shouldn't be, like Ki-Adi-Mundi, or retconning the whole Anakin is special thing by making the twins be technically the first to be born via the Force now too. A lot of what the Acolyte seems to be doing is destabilizing, reducing, and morphing the fundamental concepts of what people look for in a show about Star Wars. The Force is now the threat as well now too, which just shows how new concepts that are being introduced in a prequel no less are now suddenly being treated as gospel even though they never showed up in any of the content from that point forward. Never mind the George Lucas stuff, I mean even the Disney stuff, to the best of my knowledge, none of it up until this point references the thread as a power concept. So it's just very weird to me what Leslye has done here, not to mention out of all the eras to set your show, you chose the High Republic, which is usually considered to be one of the least liked eras of Star Wars. This is even before the Acolyte was even a thing, by the way. Mostly cause the way the High Republic is described, it's a time of peace and prosperity. The Jedi, they rule over everything basically. The Sith haven't been seen for years. It's not exactly a time period where you can inject a story like this, because it obviously ends up creating more problems than it solves, and this then leads to stupid stuff like Ki-Adi-Mundi saying that there were no Sith seen for 1,000 years in the prequels. Yet he's also in the Acolyte dealing with an apparent Sith too. Maybe this will dance around this plot point and state that the Master or Smilo Ren or whoever is the true main big bad of the show is not a Sith at all. I wouldn't be surprised at this point if Disney and Leslye Headland introduce some thread-esque variant to the Jedi or Sith with a totally new name. Since the goal, it seems from the beginning, of not only this show but Disney Star Wars in general has been to destroy, replace, and create a new status quo within Star Wars that goes against everything that has been established before. Because we know, sadly, with stuff like Netflix's Witcher, a lot of the time the people working on these kinds of projects, they have egos the size of Death Stars. And they feel that it's their right to change things to fit their ideals because they have to leave their mark on anything that they work on. So this is why for the most part we have a ton of Disney Star Wars content that doesn't celebrate or remind us of anything we have been accustomed to. Maybe the only projects Disney has done that actually feel somewhat like real Star Wars are Mando's Seasons 1 and 2 as well as Rogue One. Beyond that, not really. There's another part in the Hollywood Reporter piece where Leslye argues that the mothers of the twins are not lesbian per se, but they are just like that because it's a matriarchal society. Here's what she said. They're in a matriarchal society. As a gay woman, I knew it would read that their sexuality is queer, but there also aren't any men in their community. So a closeness between the two of them would be natural. It seemed plot-driven. I would say it's really reductive to call them lesbians. I think it means you're not really paying attention to the story. Well, I don't know, Leslye, you tell me. You had scenes where Mother Anastasia is caressing Coral, the horned lady's face. Then they also embrace each other, as well as Anastasia saying straight up that she created the children via the Force with no male involved. Leslye is likely trying to normalize lesbian relationships more, which I should state, I don't care if you're lesbian or whatever, but let's not act stupid here. She did this deliberately. It's like I said with the actors that she hired. There's no coincidence at all that basically everyone you hired acts, thinks, and has similar sexual identities. Really? You just happen to, out of thousands of people who would want to audition for Star Wars, land upon a bunch of actors who were all gay or non-binary. You can't actually think that we're dumb enough to accept that as mere coincidence, do you? Plus the fact that you state that simply because these witches grew up in a matriarchal society, that they would naturally be lesbians by default, which I mean, come on now. You're basically stating that someone's sexuality is based on their environment and upbringing as opposed to what they are naturally when they're born. So would the witches in this coven not be lesbians if they were born in a society where men were also around them too? Is Leslye saying being gay or lesbian is a choice then? You're not born that way? You see what I mean? How do these people not see the fallacies when they say these things is beyond me? Plus, if we're being real, the concept of a witch coven that's living in the middle of nowhere with no men around to procreate with means either the witches recruit others like they're Jehovah's Witnesses or something, or every single one of these witches were to some degree born the same way that May and Osha were, meaning not only is Anakin just not special at all, but at this point, using the Force or thread to create life is just something you have to learn. It's like how some people know how to use Photoshop and others don't. Mother Anastasia is just a master of the Force because she just is now. Don't ask any questions, fellas, just consume the product and shut your mouths, I guess. Also, can we just talk quickly about how Star Wars just introduced two twin black girls with a black mother and no father figure? Like, really, Disney? And you also have the kids eating spice ice cream. Does anybody over there know anything about Star Wars lore at all? Spice is literally an addictive drug in the Star Wars universe. Those kids just got told by their witch mommy that it's totally fine to eat cocaine ice cream because, what's the harm, right? How are these people paid to make these things? They're just hiring anybody over there to make Star Wars these days. Then there's the other lady who's making the new Star Wars movie, which when that flick comes out, YouTube and Twitter are going to be engulfed in a firestorm unlike we've ever seen before. The director of that next Star Wars flick is Charmine Oboid-Chinoy. She was recently interviewed by Variety for her new documentary, and of course got asked about Star Wars as well. And everything Chinoy says here is just, well, here's what she said during the interview, and I quote, "The story that interests me most is in Rey's journey as a female Jedi. That's how I best bring my experiences to it. The greatest thing about Star Wars is that everyone has a personal connection to it, everyone is passionate about it. And throughout the fandom, people have clear ideas about who should direct or what the story should be about. I'm just drowning out all those voices until I'm done. As a storyteller, I'm focused on drawing new moviegoers into the cinema and bringing a sense of nostalgia that will appeal to older fans of the series. Sometimes you walk in the footsteps of people and giants who've created worlds, and in the case of Star Wars, George Lucas's world and the filmmakers that have walked in his footsteps have set this world that they want young viewers to sort of walk into and have an understanding of the world. And at the heart of it, for me, is Rey Skywalker, is Daisy Ridley and her story, and taking her on an adventure to a Jedi Academy and sort of creating a world that is a natural dovetail to the story that we've seen her go through in the last 3 episodes. And working with Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy and the team over there in breathing life to characters that everyone loves and has fallen in love with, and finding new characters that the next generation of moviegoers will fall in love with too. I've had conversations with J.J. Abrams, I've had conversations with George Lucas, and then of course Dave Filoni, who's a big part of the Star Wars universe now. We speak very often. I think the team is really taking time to make sure that we do justice to telling the story of Daisy. I think that she stands for something. We've seen this wonderful journey she went on in episodes 7, 8, and 9, and now it's like on to the next adventure, and how do we create a world and the adventure that we take her on, end quote. Chinoy, in case you don't remember, has already confirmed that everything she makes has a political angle to it, and she identifies herself as an activist first and a filmmaker second. That's her words, by the way. She literally said that during a summit for female creators recently. So when you look at the people who are being hired to make these new projects in this galaxy far, far away, the agenda is clear. They're lying to you when they say that they want to make things for you as in the original old fans because you don't matter to them anymore. Even when Chinoy said in her interview that she wanted to make things for the older fans as well, she prefaced it by saying that her ultimate goal is to reach a new audience. That's been the goal all along for all of these projects, by the way. The end goal here is to attract new viewers to things like Disney Star Wars, because they are confident that over time they can eventually replace the old fandom with a new one that is more accepting of their ideas and beliefs. Has it worked well for them so far? No, hell no, of course not. It's the classic made for a modern audience thing. The truth is that when it comes to appealing to younger people, Star Wars is currently not exactly bringing in enough new fans. We know this just by looking at previous Disney Plus Star Wars shows ratings. They're dropping consistently. The only people that are watching this stuff is either people like me for content or jaded fans who are hoping the magic returns but it never does. The truth is that the youth today aren't watching shows as much as we did back in the day, or even movies. Sure, they'll go out and see something if it resonates culturally with them, like Inside Out 2 is a good example of this recently. And then of course you'll have Deadpool and Wolverine, which will likely be another because it's a winning combo. But when it comes to Star Wars shows or anything like that, the answer is unanimously that young people are not really rejecting it per se, they simply just don't care at all. They're too busy playing stuff like Fortnite or Valorant while watching TikToks and YouTube. Young people these days, they don't seem to enjoy passive entertainment as much as prior generations did. Recently, I was on George the Giant Slayer's live stream, and we were talking about this very subject, that the youth of today are just not as interested in passive entertainment. They want to be actively engaged and be doing something instead. This is why video games continue to explode in reach and popularity, because you are in control and engaging with the entertainment. Same goes with TikTok. When some dance goes viral, the youth get to engage with the trend themselves by performing the weird dances. Look, I don't get the TikTok appeal, alright? My knees, they crack when I bend down to pet my dogs, and my back explodes when I stretch. I am not the target audience for TikTok, clearly. But the youth are proof that this is ultimately the kind of entertainment and content that they want to pursue. And plus, let's be real, a lot of younger boys these days as well are becoming more aware that the way society is going, they're being labeled as bad simply because they're men. And when you have multi-billion-dollar companies like Disney making content that is starring exclusively strong women, that almost unanimously depicts men as either weak and feeble or as villains, you're losing that audience too, and for good reason, cause you're alienating them all the time. Why would some young boy out there want to watch Daisy Ridley and her group of woke, likely lesbian Jedi cohorts? Or watch something like The Acolyte? They'd rather just play a video game, put on some music and vibe, and honestly, I don't blame them for it. So much of this content is being made to explicitly reject and alienate the male fan base. It's not a coincidence that the majority of Disney Star Wars' projects feature strong female characters in leading roles. Yet outside of maybe Rogue One and Force Awakens, the majority of the female-led projects, they have failed. And it's likely why a game like the Jedi Order series has broken well over 10 million copies sold per title, because it actually features a strong male lead who isn't also gay or bi. Kathleen Kennedy has already admitted aplenty that the ever-going quest to forcibly change Star Wars into a female brand is clearly not working for them, and nobody's surprised by this. Via that Park Place, Kathleen Kennedy said some things during an interview all the way back in 2015 during Fortune magazine's Powerful Women Summit. Here's what she said all the way back then, and I quote, "I think the interesting path we've had is the conversation that took place around consumer products. Because there were a lot of companies that were in place who frankly didn't initially feel that Star Wars was for girls. And when you have a company situation where between Lucasfilm and Disney we were all looking at the situation and saying, no, with Star Wars we have to change this. We have to make sure that we create products that are in a sense appealing to both boys and girls. What's wrong with that? The fact that the company was bought by the Walt Disney Company has been amazing because they very much support the fact that we are trying to grow in the workforce a number of women in executive positions and in all positions inside the company. And with the movies that we are making with the protagonists that we are putting in the stories, so I get a huge amount of support with that," end quote. That last part especially was very telling, and remember, this was 2015, well before The Last Jedi blew everything up and all of that. KK confirms that in the end of that interview where she says that they are making movies with protagonists they've chosen on purpose for these stories. She means women, by the way, not men, which was a problem then, and this interview is almost 10 years old at this point. Crazy how so much time has passed and yet nothing has changed still. They're still trying the same tactics, same character concepts, everything. They have been trying to force, no pun intended, this new way of thinking on the fan base for about a decade now, and nothing has gotten better. Audiences are less accepting than ever before. Even normies know what a Mary Sue is or what DEI stands for. They're losing the battle is what's happening. KK even admitted this when she talked to the New York Times, where she said this: "Operating within these giant franchises now with social media and the level of expectation, it's terrifying. I think Leslye has struggled a little bit with it too. I think a lot of the women who step into Star Wars struggle with this a bit more because of the fan base being so male-dominated. They sometimes get attacked in ways that can be quite personal. They're only struggling because they refuse to give people what they want. And instead the creators are being selfish and creating things they want, which goes against the whole concept of creating content for an audience that has expectations. It's like opening a pizza restaurant and one day you go, I really want to just make salads, and then you force salads on customers and they walk away. Well, why doesn't anyone want to eat my salads? These customers must be bigots. Or maybe you should stick to pizza and stop trying to force something down people's throats that they don't want. Kathleen Kennedy, she just really wants the Star Wars fandom to toss her salad, but unfortunately for her, the fandom isn't very fond of her smelly salad, and that really angers her. I mean, come on, dude, your Acolyte show is being torn to shreds, and then the posters that you release for the show are a lightsaber with what seems to be like period blood streaks. And then you have other posters that look like a maxi pad formation, and then these people will look you dead in the eyes and go, agenda? What agenda? You're just crazy. Okay, Disney, whatever you say, keep losing billions. I'll be here to twerk on your dying corpse after every failure and laugh at all the problems you create for yourself. And then sadly, there's one YouTuber that's getting blasted for his coverage of Acolyte, which is Star Wars Theory. He's been getting attacked relentlessly for giving his takes on the Acolyte. I already covered in my previous video about Dr. Disrespect that Theory is currently seeking legal action against Wikipedia, because Wikipedia claimed Theory sent his fans after them when they changed lore details to reflect the Acolyte over that of George Lucas's movies. And now the master of the TDS, who regularly seeks out to see if companies and such are botting their engagements, has posted proof of various users calling for Star Wars Theory to be, well, you know, bad things I can't say on YouTube, but you get the picture. Here's some of the stuff that was said, which you can see on screen now. Like this guy in the middle who said we'd be better off without people like Theory existing, or this person on the bottom left here saying that we should behead Theory because he speaks about Star Wars. I know, right? This is crazy. Saying that we should end a guy's life because you disagree with him on Star Wars? That's where we're at now? Or this one in the bottom right that just says straight up to advocate for Theory to be ended. So yeah, totally rationally sane individuals on Twitter here, guys. When asked by a user if these were 100% real, the master of the TDS replied confirming it's so, and considering how much research TDS does for this kind of thing, I believe him. I never want anyone watching my videos to believe that the solution is physical violence or anything like that. Never harass any individuals, even if you believe that they deserve it. We must never stoop to their level, and what people are saying about Theory, it's just wrong, man. We are all entitled to our opinions, but I don't think the solution here is to advocate for someone you disagree with to be ended or self-deleted or beheaded. You're all welcome to discuss and say your opinions, but please, never stoop to these levels. This is what companies like Disney want to happen. They want you all to be divided and fighting amongst yourselves. Because if you do, then you won't be as focused or assembled to fight back against Disney themselves. As long as we are all fighting each other, the big problems, they just stay unsolved, and personally, I think we need to not lose sight of the goal here, which is to stick it to Disney and ensure the criticism and backlash is targeted where it should be targeted, which is Disney and not content creators who only want the best for you. I know Theory isn't doing this because he hates Star Wars. The dude lives and breathes that galaxy. Why would he want Star Wars to be bad? Just shame on these people, and again, because it bears repeating, never harass or issue death threats to anyone, please, regardless of who or why. You're all better than that, and we need to stay together and not allow infighting to ruin the common cause of this all. As for everything else discussed in this video, it's clear that our critiques and backlash are at least being heard. Will Disney change course? Doubtful, but who knows. But we must continue to keep them accountable, or Star Wars will be lost forever. Thank you for watching, subscribe, share, like the video, and thanks to my patrons as well. Have a great day, take care of yourselves, and I'll be seeing you very soon because episode 5 of The Acolyte is almost here. My full review will come out the morning after it premieres. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.